You know, I'm not too surprised about the Nintendo Switch OLED stuff that's happening right now. Nintendo did the same thing with the original Nintendo Switch, so I kind of expected them to do the same thing with the Nintendo Switch too. The big question is not if, but when will Nintendo bring the Nintendo Switch 2 OLED? Do they wait 3+ years, or do they get that thing up and running and out the door fast? What do you guys think? Hey guys, it's Rob here, and welcome back to the Robo Show, where we cover the latest news, leaks, and rumors from Sony, Microsoft, and Nintendo. If you want to be kept up on the latest gaming news, make sure you click that red subscribe button below and have that notification bell on. And if you're interested, I have a Patreon, which link to that will be in the pinned comment along with my Twitter account. In this video, we are going to talk about some new Nintendo Switch OLED stuff that has recently entered the discussion, what exactly is going on, and overall discuss Nintendo bringing out a Nintendo Switch OLED. There's also some pretty shocking details about Mario Kart World, or at least to me anyways. It's not really something I considered myself when thinking about Mario Kart World. And there's also a small cool detail I like that they recently showed off when it comes to the map of Mario Kart World when you're actually playing the game. Specifically the mini-map, I just find it really cool, so I thought I'd show it off here. We also do have some really cool news and info from games like Donkey Kong Bananza, and reviews for a game that I'm really excited for, Fantasy Life I, The Girl Who Steals Time. It's really fantastic news for people who were excited for that game. The reviews are really fantastic. And also how long the game is going to be as well, which I think is pretty important if you're going to be picking up the game. Like, if you guys end up enjoying this video, leave a like, it helps the video out a lot. And if you want to follow me on Twitter and help us pass our goal of 1,000 followers, you can follow us at RoboRob93. Without further delay, let's continue to the video. So the Nintendo Switch 2 is closing in on us really fast. I said in my last video it was a little bit less than 20 days, and by the time this video goes live, it should be less than 15 days, or at least it should anyways. It's gonna be a time when we play games like Mario Kart World, which we'll get to in this video, and also Breath of the Wild upgrades with Tears of the Kingdom upgrades as well, which, by the way, if you guys didn't know this, if you own the Nintendo Switch Online expansion pack, you will get those for free. There were some people in the comment section who didn't know that in the last video, and I think there was even someone who was going to end up buying the full game because of those upgrades, which that just saves them $70. But anyways, with all of this excitement and admittedly some frustration, I'm sure none of us were really thinking, or at least I wasn't thinking anyways, wonder if Nintendo's going to be bringing out a Nintendo Switch OLED. I wasn't thinking about that at all. Well, it seems that some Nintendo Switch OLED news has dropped, or kind of anyways. This is what finalweapon.com.net has to say. Nintendo has partnered with Samsung to ramp up production for the main chips of the Nintendo Switch 2, according to the new report from Bloomberg. Nintendo reportedly aims to sell more than 20 million units by March of 2026, and Samsung is pushing for OLED screens in a potential revision. Now, this is something that I'm not really too surprised at. Nintendo did this with the Nintendo Switch 1, but the fact that we are getting some information that Samsung is actively pushing this with Nintendo probably means that it's currently in development and might have even been in development for quite some time. But anyways, continuing with the article, Samsung is working on the Nintendo Switch 2 processor designed by Nvidia using its 8nm node. Anonymous sources from Bloomberg claim that the production pace should be fast enough for Nintendo to surpass the 20 million mark for Nintendo Switch 2. Samsung can also ramp up production even further depending on the capacity from hardware assemblers like Foxconn to bolster competition with TSMC in the chip making industry. So as far as that information goes, there's more of the article that we're going to be talking about, but as far as that goes, it really does seem like Samsung is pushing the Nintendo Switch really hard. They really want to secure that, so I wouldn't be surprised if Nintendo ends up going with them when it comes to the screen. It's worth noting that the official forecast from Nintendo for the new console is 15 million units, which factored in on the tariff impacts of tens of billion yen on the profit this year. However, Nintendo President Shintaro Furukawa noted that the forecast doesn't reflect supply constraints. Moreover, Samsung is pushing the OLED displays to be used when Nintendo eventually refreshes the Nintendo Switch 2 in the future. The refresh would likely come near the halfway point of the Nintendo Switch 2's life cycle, as previously seen with the original Nintendo Switch OLED model. And I think that's pretty much the question that we have to ask right now, is when exactly does Nintendo consider the halfway life point of the Nintendo Switch OLED? And to answer that question, we need to know, does Nintendo even consider this a new generation? Because they do end up having long longer generations now, I feel. The Nintendo Switch, the original one, was pretty long. I think it was like 7 to 8 years by now. So if Nintendo does consider this a new generation for the Nintendo Switch, but is still supporting the original Nintendo Switch, I could see them waiting at least 3 years like the original Nintendo Switch OLED. I've always said that Nintendo likes to go back and look at what worked really well for them in the past and continue to do that and iterate and improve on what worked in the past. That's how you can always tell like when the next Nintendo Direct is. Now, when it comes to the Nintendo Directs now, of course, you can't really do that because it's all up in the air with the Nintendo Switch 2 in the mix. But if we were to go on what Nintendo was doing in the past, then we can probably assume that around the 3-ish year mark, we should see a Nintendo Switch OLED. The one thing I do wonder is Nintendo just gonna forget about the past consoles when it comes to new editions and stuff? Like, will we ever get a Nintendo Switch Lite OLED? Will we get like a Nintendo Switch 2 Lite? Are we going to be getting those eventually? That's something that I've been wondering. Specifically the Nintendo Switch 2 Lite, because you can't dock that, so how would you even do like the 4K mode? You would just have the handheld mode, right? I guess we'll see in the next 5 years, you know? With that being said, if you are interested in the Donkey Kong or Mario Kart news, click the top right corner of this video to watch a video on why I think the HD versions of Twilight Princess and of course the Legend of Zelda Wind Waker still belong on the Nintendo Switch. And also, before you leave which game you want to see on the Nintendo Switch 2. It really does help the video if you do that before you leave. But yeah, that video is going to be in the top right corner of the video right now. And also in the description if you want to check it down in there. With that being said, let's move on to the next topic, and that's going to be Mario Kart World. So Mario Kart World is a game that I am really excited for. I have it pre-ordered. It's ready to pick up when I pick up the Nintendo Switch 2, which will be at midnight, by the way. I ended up pre-ordering it at GameStop. Let me know your stories on your pre-order experience when it comes to the Switch 2. Personally, I ended up getting rained on during waiting outside of GameStop. It was not a fun time, but it was worth it in my opinion. I think it's going to be a blast on launch, and recently we have found out some pretty cool information when it comes to the development of Mario Kart World, which this information actually gets me really excited for just not Mario Kart World, but also the Legend of Zelda game, the next one, the next Xenoblade, I mean, heck, maybe even the next Paper Mario or Mario RPG if Nintendo ends up making new games in that kind of way. So Actual Arrow over on Twitter has a screenshot from an article, and this is what it said. When did you decide to move the development of this game to Nintendo Switch 2? Sato. Yubiki-san first brought it up around 2020. Back then, we already had an idea of the next system's expected specs, but it wasn't until a bit later that we actually received working development units. Until then, we just had to proceed with development based on provisional estimates. I see, so you had to use your imagination while developing the game. Sato, when we were developing for Nintendo Switch, and they're talking about the first Nintendo Switch, we often worried whether or not we can find the right balance between planning and performance. Of course, the Switch's performance is sufficient for developing different kinds of games, but if we had to include everything we wanted in the game's vast world, then it wouldn't have run at 60 FPS and would have suffered from constant frame rate drops. I think there were a lot of people on the team who were worried about whether or not we could manage it, but once we decided to release the game on Switch 2, we expected our worries to evaporate all at once. I remember being overjoyed when I discovered we could express even more than we originally set out. So why does this get me really excited for future Nintendo Switch games when it comes to like Legend of Zelda or new IPs or even third-party games and stuff like that? Well, by the sound of it, it seems that Nintendo Switch 2 is allowing developers to do a lot more with their games when it comes to performance, what they can do with the games when it comes to gameplay, and overall across the board, it just makes games more ambitious and more fun on the Nintendo Switch 2. I mean, in Donkey Kong Bonanza, we have a full destructible environment. I mean, that's pretty cool. If they do that with other games or do other crazy things like that when it comes to just gameplay mechanics, it's going to make a lot of these different games a lot better. I mean, hopefully. Anyways, the first thought in my head is hopefully Pokemon games will look better. I guess we'll see with the next Pokemon game that's specifically designed for the Nintendo Switch 2 and not during this kind of cross generation we're going in with the Switch 1 and Switch 2. So this gets me really excited and really amped for the future of the Nintendo Switch. I think that's one thing to take away of the power of the Nintendo Switch and just the games that we're seeing and coming to the platform is that the future is pretty bright. There are some things, again, that I don't like that's happening, but overall, I would say that I'm pretty optimistic about the future of the console, and I'm pretty excited. And again, I didn't really even think that they weren't going to be able to have it run on the Nintendo Switch, at least how they wanted. I didn't even think about that, so it is kind of a little surprising to me. Now, if you're not interested in Donkey Kong Bonanza, click the top right corner about the information of the Nintendo Switch free upgrades that we're going to be receiving that recently dropped from Nintendo. These games include games that you may already own. It's recent news, so click the top right corner if if you're interested in that. And if not, let's talk about Donkey Kong Bonanza. So Donkey Kong Bonanza and the new design. If you guys haven't seen the new design look that we got, especially when it comes to Diddy Kong, it's going to be on your screen right now. But not only that, but we do have some more information on the design and how the development of that design went when it comes to designing these designs. I don't know if you guys know this, but we're talking about designs. Anyways, this is what Shigeru Miyamoto said during an interview with IGN. When it comes to the characters creation and working with characters, I still take an active role in that, he explained. And looking back at the first generation Donkey Kong Country, we worked with Rare to create Donkey Kong Country. When we were talking about trying to create new versions evolving Donkey Kong, we created the game called Jungle Beat. We worked together with the team that made 3D Mario. With the technology that was available at the time, we were able to make Donkey Kong more expressive, he added. And going back to the design that Rare came up with, we reevaluated what we could do with designs to make it more expressive. And when it came to the movie, we decided to go forward with this new generation Donkey Kong design. Oh, that's actually pretty interesting. So the movie design actually influenced the game design. Is that what they're saying? Now, the interesting thing here is that the person who originally designed Donkey Kong in the 90s actually gave his approval of the new design. So this is what the article said about that. Kevin Bayless, the former Rare artist who was responsible for redesigning Donkey Kong in the 90s, gave his approval when the new design was revealed in April. I don't understand why there's any debate to be had, Bayless wrote. It's still DK, only better looking. People need to embrace change more. All good things get better with age. I would say that though, since I've been doing this for almost 40 years now. Everyone give a big warm welcome for the new DK. And personally, my thoughts on the redesign, I definitely do like the design. It feels more like an animated movie, you know what I mean? It's more expressive. I really think that it lends it better to video games and just animation in general. And when you're having a new game on a new system, you probably do want it to be more expressive, more dynamic, things like that. And we're seeing that within the game, and I think that just makes you enjoy the game, especially when it comes to like comedic moments. Being able to push your character, and especially when it comes to animation and action games, you do want to be able to push that expression and push that model to its limits so that you can emphasize like any actions or expressions when it comes to your character. In fact, it's why I'm trying to redesign my character right now, is so that I can improve the animation. That's why I'm like learning Blender and, you know, all those kind of things. So yeah, I can definitely understand why they went with this redesign. And personally, I do like it. I also like just the art style that they're using for the game, especially when it comes to being able to create like fan art. I've seen some really good fan art of the new Donkey Kong, and it's just really fantastic. I saw this really cool fan animation as well. So not only are a lot of people liking this, they're actively creating new fan art for this new Donkey Kong. So I think personally it's really good, and overall I think it is going to be good for the brand as well. But yeah, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below about all of these things, and I will see you guys in the next video. Take care. And if not on your way out, make sure you subscribe for more videos and also have that notification bell on. And if you want to support the channel in any other way, there is my Patreon and Twitter account in the pinned comment if you're interested in those. Oh, and also have this donut if you're still sticking around for me rambling. Thanks for watching, guys, and remember, stay safe, stay charged, and have a good one.